Aganusha Accorda is Misha Paula Kunigon. Welcome back to the third session of day one of IST-Africa 2022. We're going to have presentations now from Pitso, from Silma, from Petrus, and from Maria, focused around issues related to e-government. So our first presenter is Pitso.
Thank you for the opportunity to present our research work. Authors of the paper are Tankiso Moletsane, student at the University of Cape Town, and Pitso Tsibolane, senior lecturer at the University of Cape Town. Today, the presenter is Tankiso Moletsane. Our research is titled Intention to Adopt E-Voting, a Perspective of South African Youth. Looking into what motivated our research work, we realize that South African youth do not participate in voting. They engage in discussions in build-up to elections, but do not register to vote. This is a challenge for a democratic country like South Africa, as public participation is known to be the pillar of democracy. Less than 50% of youth were registered to vote for the 2019 general elections. Youth constitute 30% of South African population. This is a sizable chunk of voters, and something needs to be done to ensure their participation. We move to our research objective and research question. Our research objective is to investigate the factors that influence young people's intentions to adopt e-voting. And the research question is, what factors influence the intention of young South Africans to adopt e-voting? Then we move to our literature review. Different concepts were identified and later used in conceptual framework. These concepts include trust of internet, trust of government, access to ICT, ICT skills, perceived utility of ICT, and political interest. Literature shows that e-voting can improve voting processes and voter participation. Disabled people can also benefit from e-voting as the technology accommodates them. E-voting also improves the accuracy in ballot counting and improves integrity of elections. With that said, the possibility of hacking and illegal voting are drawbacks when it comes to e-voting. IEC must consider these drawbacks and ensure that there are plans in place to manage them when adopting e-voting. Looking into our proposed framework as well as hypothesis.
Shame because of the discussion.
Different constructs were adopted from previously used models that include trust and risk in e-government adoption, access, skills, and attitude framework, technology acceptancy model, theory of planned behavior, diffusion of innovation theory, and Carter's e-government adoption model. So this is our proposed model as shown in the screen, as well as the hypothesis that we are proposing. When we look into our research methodology, our philosophy is positivism, strategy, quantitative, and then research approach is deductive, as previously mentioned, that we adopted theories. And then we used online questionnaire to collect data. Our target population was South African youth between the ages of 18 to 35, with a sample size of 384 required. This is based on 95 confidence level and 5% margin of error. Content and face validity were conducted to improve the quality of research questions. A pilot study was also conducted to ensure that respondents can understand and answer all questions. Moving to the data that we received. We received 412 responses. This is the distribution of our data. Here we are only showing age and gender distribution. On age side, the The highest respondents were between the ages of 21 to 25 with 153 responses. That makes 37.1% of the total. And then on the gender side, female were the highest with 230 responses. That makes 55.8% in total. We then did the reliability analysis using Cronbach alpha. Cronbach alpha of 0.7 is acceptable for anything that is more than 0.7. And those that are less than 0.7 but more than 0.6 are considered questionable, but can be used where questions are 3 or less in a construct. So we noticed that political affiliation is the only construct with less than 0.7, but it got it is more than 0.6. And then we also noticed that number of questions in that construct were 3. So we decided to continue to use the political affiliation construct. We also did SIM analysis, and we realized that our framework is showing stronger results with political affiliation included than when it is not included. So for those 2 reasons, we decided to keep political affiliation construct. So this is the full results of our Cronbach alpha. Moving to our hypothesis. We use the p-value to determine whether to support or not to support the hypothesis. Some literature says that p-value may be misleading in testing hypothesis. We also included the standard error to confirm whether to support or not to support the hypothesis. So after doing that analysis, also using SIM, we realized that 5 of our hypotheses were not supported. That is 1, 2, 8, 11, and 12. Hypothesis number 10, that is the image, did not converge on SIM analysis, then did not give us any results. So we did not have results for the hypothesis number 10. And all other hypotheses were supported. Moving to our discussion slide. There might be an argument on whether voter participation is declining or not, but there has been results showing that youth participation is declining. Youth participate in political engagement and have opinions, but they are not participating in voting. Youth consider access to ICT as a significant factor in determining their participation in election. And 93% indicated that they have access to ICT and they can use ICT. South African youth believe the possession of ICT skills is important in using e-voting. They also believe that they have ICT skill. Lastly, South African youth showed positive attitude in e-voting adoption, indicating that they will vote should the IEC introduce e-voting.
Is she back?
Moving to our conclusion slide. We are making some recommendations that include make e-voting technology accessible through multiple platforms, improve voter critical skills on how to use e-voting, IEC to get support from political parties to ensure that they send the same message to youth. That will include the government and political parties. They should all be advocating for e-voting. So IEC will have the responsibility to get a buy-in from the government and political parties. The paper contribution, it contributes to theory as well as the new data set that is guided by multiple theory. The limitation, it was a cross-sectional view of data with unequal participation from all provinces. The future research can include the qualitative approach to explore the deeper stories and technophobia related to e-voting. This will help to understand how to implement e-voting and something that can be used by everyone, and everyone will have a buy-in and support the use of e-voting. Thank you for your time, and this is the presentation of our paper. These are the references that we used, and then you will find more information on our paper. I am inviting you to please check our paper and read, and then you can give us feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Pitso. One comment I would have is that encouraging people to register to vote and then actually vote is, in my experience, not a challenge that's limited to developing countries. In Ireland, for example, and across Europe, this is an issue that also exists. So why do you believe that the score, first of all, for political affiliation was the only one below 0.7? And then, is the perceived drop in the youth vote a signal related to trust in e-voting, or a signal more related to less trust in the political process itself? I'll welcome your thoughts.
Hello, it's Pitso here. I wasn't the one presenting. My co-author was presenting, who was the master student that did the research. So if I was just to jump in, we definitely agree that this problem has got and our literature review actually showed that it does have international resonance, that this happens everywhere. Of course, we needed to sort of strengthen our position, to just scope our research much more clearer. So, to your question regarding why we think the political affiliation. So, I think the question on political affiliation is a sensitive one. So, when you ask people, people may or may not feel comfortable answering it. And we possibly think that if we were maybe to use a different approach in capturing that piece of data, we saw a lot of people not answering there, or people not really, wanting to show whether they're voting for the opposition and all of this. So there's practical implications, we think, upon reflection, that maybe we could have done it differently, but I think people didn't. So that's why we still wanted to make a comment about its importance, because it also came out on the qualitative questions that we asked, that people, do seem to, those that want to talk about it. So it is significant, but there are some that don't want to talk about it and therefore are not giving an indication of where they belong. So possibly that could have impacted that number.
Thanks, Pitso. Tankiso, I can see that you're there. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to what Pitso has shared?
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, I can just add on the political, the issue of trust that you raised. I think there is a lack of trust in the government in terms of the service delivery. So the youth are losing trust in the government in terms of delivering, so they don't see the reason why to vote. So this is another issue that needs to be addressed, where there should be a commitment from the political party side that they encourage their supporters or members to engage in voting, because if you do not like what is being offered, you have an option of going to an opposition or any other political party. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this issue? Because I'm sure this is not something that's limited to South Africa. In which case, thank you very much indeed. And we're now going to go on to the next presenter. So can we just take some questions for Esther first? So if I just repeat the question I had, and if either Esther or Jude is there, or Martin, that can answer this question. With the increasing prevalence of cybercrime, ensuring that police forces have the necessary capacity and specialist support is critical. Do you believe this has been given sufficient priority? and what low-hanging fruit may exist that governments should address first? Okay, I'm still not hearing any feedback from Jude or Martin or from Esther. Okay, in which case we're going to move on then to Silma, who's going to talk about a smart city maturity assessment model for South African municipalities.
Fellow presenters, delegates, guests, it is a privilege to present to you a smart city maturity assessment model for South African municipalities. My name is Silma Koekemoer and I am a part-time faculty member for undergraduate and postgraduate students. I'm also a postdoctoral research enthusiast. I love research, writing articles and presenting them at conferences. You could probably call it my hobby, even if it is quite an odd hobby to have. And I am a professional management and financial system consultant, mainly in public sector. I'm absolutely passionate about making a difference, and that is the origin of this research paper. I want to make a difference in the community I live in my family, in people that come across my way, and I believe that this smart city maturity assessment model is a way to contribute to the development of South African municipalities. Now, smart cities has become quite a buzzword in South Africa. It's very fashionable to call yourself a smart city. And it was even further elevated by a statement of the President during the 2019 State of the Nation address, where the President expressed a dream to build a new post-apartheid smart city right from foundations up in South Africa. And this smart city to be driven by technology from the fourth industrial revolution and incorporating green technology. And I ask myself, why would we want to build a smart city from foundation up if we already have 257 municipalities in the country? And let us take a quick look at what they look like. 25% of these are currently in a dire financial position, technically bankrupt, not able to meet their day-to-day operational financial requirements, and several of them not even able to pay salaries at the end of the month. 50% of them are financially constrained and probably would not survive if they did not receive an extensive grant framework from the province they are in and the national fiscus. 12 of these municipalities have disclaimed audit reports, several of them for years running already. 86% of the municipalities are deemed legislatively non-compliant. 84% have had procurement irregularities identified in their last financial statements, and 44% of these municipalities have contract management issues. Now, in South Africa, one of the challenges is that very often gated estates where the affluent people live in relatively smart and well-served living circumstances are considered smart cities and not necessarily municipal administrations or municipalities. However, we know from research that a smart municipality refers to a municipality, and if the municipality as a whole is not smart, and I'm not only referring to the use of smart meters for water and electricity, I'm meaning end-to-end management, operations, capital delivery, infrastructure, service delivery. If that is not smart and enabled through technology, then we cannot call ourselves a smart city. Hence my research, and then also the proposal of a smart city maturity assessment model. The main objective of this research was to propose a smart city maturity assessment model which is relevant and applicable for the South African municipalities. It should be considerate of the environment in which municipalities operate and the context within which they need to render services to their community. This model is based on best practice, which is derived from the international smart cities that we are all aware of and aligned with the current reality within our country, accommodative of the environment which I briefly sketched in the previous slide. It reviews the current status of specific municipalities and provides guidelines for the development of strategies to achieve or to progress toward smarter municipalities and eventually over a period of time achieve the status of a smart city as it is internationally defined. The research approach and methodology which was implemented started off with a literature review, considering best practice models for smart cities, looking at frameworks and industry standards which are provided mainly by service providers and largely technology providers, and these were compared and used to develop a maturity assessment model as applicable to South Africa. The South African context and academic research was considered as well for the development of the model. Key assessment elements were selected, and these were then further unpacked into sub-assessment elements. Leadership was the first consideration, and that includes political and executive leadership. Leadership is important because of setting the tone from above for the municipality and the employees of the municipality, and also creating the direction in which the municipality should move. Strategy is largely misunderstood in South African municipalities, as the development plan and a strategy are often confused, and therefore strategy plays a very important role when embarking on a smarter city journey. Partnerships between the different spheres of government, between municipalities and their constituent businesses and industries, and their stakeholder groups and beneficiaries of these services were also considered as an element of this model. And then a customer or a people focus, how strongly the municipality strategies, plans, activities are focused on rendering services to the community versus supporting their own administration. Service delivery is the reason for existence of municipalities, and therefore no maturity assessment model would be valid or relevant without looking extensively at service delivery and how that is achieved across the municipality. The resources for service delivery were broadly considered, including the people that need to render the services, the infrastructure that is available, and the condition of the infrastructure to be able to render the services, which services are rendered, at what level they are rendered, how close they are rendered to the people, and broadly what the satisfaction levels with these services are and how these are enabled through technology. Environmental considerations were brought into the model in terms of the green economy, the resource constraints that we are under in South Africa, particularly water. We are a very dry, water scarce country. We don't have reliable electricity, and we do have a deteriorating road infrastructure. And therefore, the environment within which we operate, we have to think smartly how we are going to conserve our natural resources and how we are going to use them in a sustainable way to achieve high levels of service delivery. Socio-economic issues are very important. We have a very high unemployment rate. A large focus is placed on poverty alleviation as opposed to economic development, and we have a huge influx of mainly unemployed and very poor people into our urban areas looking for jobs and also moving closer to social support structures as opposed to the rural areas. Technology is a main thrust of the smart cities or smarter cities agenda, and therefore technology in its broadest sense was considered, from architectural design, the use and the enablement of services through technology, and how technology is used not only to support administration, but actually to improve on service delivery and to reduce the cost while increasing the efficiency of service delivery to the community. I've already touched on infrastructure, which is a huge problem in South Africa. All of our infrastructure has been weakly maintained and is deteriorating and is not necessarily designed or able to serve the community and the population growth that we are experiencing sufficiently. And then the agenda of resilient cities, how we are going to become resilient, how we are going to brace ourselves against the challenges that we are experiencing, and how we are going to sustainably turn around our service delivery and follow our smarter or smartification agenda. The key assessment elements were further unpacked into sub-elements, which give a broader scope of assessment and which would then be rolled up into the key assessment elements to calculate the maturity level of the municipality. I'm not going to unpack each one of the key assessment elements, but let me use technology as an example. In technology, the first consideration was the Fourth Industrial Revolution and products of the Fourth Industrial Revolution which are available to improve service delivery to the community. The integration of physical, human, and digital resources was considered, specifically how we are using our physical infrastructure and the digital or technology that is available to serve humans and how humans are using these to serve humans. We looked at efficient and reliable networks, which I've already mentioned is a challenge in South Africa. We do not have reliable electricity and we do not have reliable IT networks, particularly in our rural areas, which hamper service delivery. The architectural design and adoption of architectures was considered, and it is an expensive architectural consideration. Enterprise architecture, the architecture of the different services, the architecture of the supporting technology, the technology landscape, the data architecture, and how all of these are proactively managed and utilized to improve service delivery. Research and development was considered from a municipal point of view. Few municipalities actively conduct research and development into the latest trends in terms of technologies, service delivery developments, socio-economic improvement, and very seldom does this result in innovations in terms of service delivery, innovations in ways of working, and it is very seldomly used to address the urban issues that are currently faced in the country. Data management. Data probably is one of the key resources of municipalities, but not very efficiently used. Many municipalities misconstrue the intentions of the Personal Information Protection Act and don't want to use data that they have at their disposal. There's little evidence of data analytics and data reporting, and therefore that is an area to consider and to further explore to improve service delivery within municipalities particularly. Since developing this Smart City Maturity Assessment model, I've been able to test the model at a district municipality. It should be noted that this district municipality is probably one of the leading districts in the country and therefore not necessarily representative of all 257 municipalities in the country. However, the test did prove very useful and insightful. Key assessment elements were used together with their contributing sub-elements. We decided not to roll up the sub-elements into the key assessment elements, but to use the broader assessment as the basis for a digitization strategy. In terms of the model was originally designed for the sub-elements to be rolled up into the key elements, and the key elements then produced or presented as the maturity level of the municipality. However, it was very useful to use the full assessment as the basis for the digitization strategy or the development of the digitization strategy for this municipality. A two-pronged approach was selected by the municipality. First of all, they decided that they would like to excel in the areas of high maturity, become the leading municipality in those areas in the country, and therefore work very smartly and very hard on the areas of high maturity, and at the same time to improve on areas with lower maturity and bring them up to at least an average score or an average assessment over a period of time. The importance of leadership support was clearly identified during this testing of the maturity assessment, and it includes both political leadership and executive leadership. And there needs to be a clear support of this whole process or the whole program, and also definite allocation of resources and commitment to, over an extended period of time and implementation, regularly work in, motivate and follow up on assessments to really achieve what was intended through the assessment. This is an objective instrument which could enable repeatable measurements. Municipalities are empowered to use this as a self-assessment and develop customized, suitable, achievable smart city strategies for themselves. And it's a broader smart city strategy, not only technology-enabled smart cities. Why we decided to empower the municipalities is because if municipalities can do this by themselves, assess themselves, develop strategies themselves, there's no need for expensive interventions and programs from consultants outside of the municipality, which the municipalities generally can ill afford. This also lends itself to incremental and affordable improvements, which contribute towards the overall organizational performance, probably to strengthen the municipalities, improve their audit outcomes, and improve service delivery in a broader sense. And in that way, it would lead to smarter cities as opposed to smart cities. And there would be no need to build a new smart city from foundation upwards, because over a period of time, the existing 257 municipalities, which largely are struggling to maintain good levels of service delivery, would move through a continuum of smarter cities towards the point where eventually we will have smart cities in our country. Thank you very much. I appreciate your keen attention, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Silma. I like the philosophical approach that you've adopted. As I'm sure most people can appreciate, turning something trendy into reality can be challenging, even for financially stable municipal governments. You mentioned migration from rural to urban environments to access services and jobs that may or may not exist, which increase both pressure on urban municipalities while simultaneously depleting rural municipalities of both human resources and a future tax base. So what do you perceive to be the most impactful smart services that should be considered for priority by municipalities, or is it horses for courses type approach? And how could this model be considered and adapted by other municipalities across Africa? And finally, are there any obvious, from your point of view, low-hanging fruit in specific municipal contexts that you'd like to share? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity. Yes, I suppose it is a little bit of a philosophical approach, but if we don't start somewhere, we're never going to get anywhere. Now, which services you would like to see us change, or which would lend themselves to smartification? I do think that if one considers the broader landscape in South Africa, we do have some environmental challenges that we need to address. We've just had major floods, for example, in KZN, And as recent as the weekend, Koekemoer, which is now the new name for Port Elizabeth, announced that within 3 weeks, they would not have sufficient water to serve the community residing within their metro area. So I do think the first thing that I would like to see smartified is the use of data, the use of technology to smartify the way that we plan our municipal services, because planning in general is challenging. Our infrastructure is, as I said, deteriorating, and I don't necessarily think we have got the skills all over, but through using technology, we can share the skills and the resources that we have. Some low-hanging fruits, I must say that this district municipality where we tested the tool is actually slightly more rural. It's not one of the big city centers in the country. It's not even one of the big secondary cities in the country. And what impressed me was the way that they are looking at a combination of improving the environment and using technology. So they currently have got quite a creative project where they are recycling waste, domestic waste and business waste, and they are using the people from the community, not only in manual processes, but also in mechanical processes to actually recycle some of the waste. And they're also using some of the waste that they are recycling for creative production. For example, they are using certain of the materials to create bags and mementos that tourists would like to purchase as reminders of their visit to the district or to the country. Low-hanging fruits, I think that there are pockets of excellence in the country and that we should learn from their lessons, and that we should actually leapfrog from where we are to where we want to be through not only what has been done in South Africa, but also what has been done in other countries and in other cities, because if we leapfrog from their lessons learned, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we don't have to relearn all the lessons that they've gone through, and we probably could use our partnerships and our relationships with other cities. We've got a very strong culture of twin cities with American and European cities. And if we use those relationships, we could probably fast track our developments as opposed to reinventing the wheel and starting our development right from scratch. I do believe that this assessment could be used in other African or developing cities. What needs to be done is those cities need to first of all work through the assessment elements and the sub-elements and decide which of them are applicable and which are not. And if they decide something is not applicable, why they consider it not applicable. And if there are assessment elements which they would like to include, they can extend the assessment. And then they can, like this municipality, decide what is the purpose of their assessment. Do they only want to have a number to say this is our maturity level at present, or do they actually want to use it for an intervention? And which of the main assessment elements they are then going to tackle first of all in their intervention. As this district municipality decided they're going to do a two-pronged approach. They're going to work on the pockets of excellence, and they're also going to work on the pockets of weaker performance. And any other municipality can do something similar. They can also use some of the sub-assessment elements, identify the key areas where they're going to place a huge focus for development, and over a period of time, improve their overall maturity, but also come with innovative solutions to their specific challenging areas and further develop as a municipal administration. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, there's just two things I'd like to pick up on. So you mentioned twin cities as being an opportunity for sharing knowledge and experience with Europe and the US. But I'd like us to think more creatively in terms of how we could establish twin city or twin municipality type relationships across the continent of Africa as well. So that's something, if you'd like to comment on, I'd appreciate it. And then the other issue I'd like to raise is the issue of digital twins. So it's something that hasn't been really adopted much in an African context as yet. But I do think that the concept of a digital twin could be something that could be very important in terms of helping people do better modeling and then being able to extrapolate from models that have been developed for one context to apply it to other contexts with similar characteristics. So I'd appreciate any comments you might have on either of those topics.
I really like the idea of digital twins even more than twinning cities. But yes, let's, for example, say we've got a city that is doing very well in South Africa, and in one of our neighboring states or even neighboring provinces, there's a city or a town that is not doing that well, to take hands and assist them in terms of our skills, our development, how we can pull them up to the level we are. This particular district municipality where I was working actually has got cooperative agreements with 3 of the bigger university tertiary institutions in the country, and often hosts students doing their practical research, doing some experiential research, and even coming and infusing some of what they've learned at tertiary level into the administration as guests for a short period, not even as learners, just as guest students in the municipality, and assisting the municipality with innovative thinking and some creative projects. So a person should broaden it over and above twinning cities. You can go even further. But I do like the idea of digital twins, and I would definitely want to explore that quite a bit more. With the recent floods in KZN, we saw that several of the municipal administrations across the country actually provided search and rescue teams, emergency teams, emergency workers to the areas that were really affected. And even previously with some of the environmental disasters, we've had big fires, big droughts, we saw that several of the municipalities actually take hands and help each other out in those circumstances. And I think that type of support can be broadened across Africa, where there are specific municipal administrations that are battling. We not only need to share our leadership expertise, but also our hands-on practical experience of how to help in a time of crisis and how to prepare for a following crisis so that we become more resilient cities. Thank you.
Thanks, Silma. And from IST-Africa's perspective, we're very interested in working with partner governments, but also with research institutions in those countries to look at this in a practical way. So if there are stakeholders on the call who are interested either in operationalizing some concepts related to twin cities, or particularly in terms of looking at the concepts of digital twins and how we might collaborate in terms of operationalize those in an African context, please do feel free to follow up with me. Silma, thank you very much indeed. So our next presentation is by Petrus, talking about the effectiveness of outsourced information systems in the public sector. Oh, sorry, there was a comment from Jay. So Jay, do you want to share your comment?
Not, yes, was just for not now, was for the previous presentation on e-voting. So that's why I thought that maybe at the end.
No problem. Yeah, so if we have time at the end, we'll do that. Thank you very much indeed. Right, so I'm going to pass on to Petrus's presentation now.
Yes, morning. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity again to represent this topic. Sorry for the inconvenience caused. I'm grateful for the second opportunity. Yes, as the topic that I'm going to present is effectiveness of outsourcing information system in public service. And my supervisor is Dr. Jude Osakwe, and my name is Petrus from a former student. I'm a current student at Namibia University of Science and Technology. As the topic is effectiveness of outsourcing information system in public service, the case study was done on Namibia, Ministry of Labor, but it can be diverse. Table of content, it will be consisting of introduction, the problem, objective, and questions, the literature reviews. These are former previous literature on the topic. Methodology used in the research, result presentations after the assessing of participant response, conclusion and future work recommendations, and as well as references. Okay, on the introduction panel, the government intends to improve public and demographic purpose and strengthening support to public policy. According to e-governance policy of the public service of Namibia 2005, since 1990 after independence, the Office of the Prime Minister created the Department of Public Service Information Technology Management, DPCITM department, with one of its purposes being set up standard guidelines and assisting in software acquisitions, or maybe let me say manage acquisition of software through outsourcing, where capacity to carry out does not exist in the government or internally. Thus, information computing intelligence became an effective tool that allowed the government to provide its full service to all citizens 24 hours. And this one was the reason prompted the government to take the route for outsourcing of information systems, because they wanted to reach out to the scales of public service and deliver their effective service to all parties. And now, in search for high efficiency level along with cost control, the government of Namibia has altered the specialization in information system by focusing on distinctive competency and thereby achieving success through outsourcing in several occasions. And this led to the government agreeing terms with countries such as China, Malaysia, India, Germany, and Russia for its software development. Therefore, the government adopted the initiative also on the other part of outsourcing to say, through the DPCITM, and in 2021, the government also came up with outsourcing to say it will also be helpful for them to sort out or help out the small business enterprises. That was passed in 1997. And in the other hand, the government offers money, and then the government receives from SMEs this information systems. However, this prompted the government to accommodate in these two sections that I've narrated above. The outsourced system are hunting the government, reason being that they are mostly fit to live up to expectations. After concerns and complaint about technical capacity and friendliness of these particular systems that are outsourced, and also that after the implementation of a system, there are a number of challenges that are faced by users. One being that several IT personnel within the ministry cannot do any system backup because they are not educated. They are not, not educated, but they are not filled in on how to operate such systems by the vendors. So the issue is that mainly the vendor, they just dump the systems and then they disappear with the source code. So that's the main issue. The problem on the objective and question that we're going to face here is the objectives are to assess the usefulness, how useful of outsourcing information system to government establishment, to investigate the challenge of outsourcing information system in government activities, the challenges, also to examine the steps that must be followed before considering outsourcing information system. And the questions are, how can the effectiveness of outsourcing information system to the government be analyzed? And this prompts up questions such as, what is the usefulness of outsourcing information system by users and IT personnel in government establishment? And what are the challenges of outsourcing information system in government activities? What step can be followed before considering information system? Outsourcing information system, sorry. Now, for literature review on previous work and reviewed work done on this system, on this topic, on research, according to Zank, in 2018, came to realize that there are several risk assessment stated that the information system outsources have a negative impact on the business. And according to Northell, there are several risks that are associated with information system outsourcing. And according to DAX, main reason most companies outsource is for assessing better skills and software capability, which will enable them to carry out their work more efficiently. Firm also outsourcing mainly for the thing it's cheaper to outsource a third party than to buy and maintain their own facility and devices. And according to Silma, which is a Charter Institute of Management Accounting, measuring the information system outsourcing is achieved through developing an outsourcing framework designed the purpose of overcoming the mere sloppiness of outsourcing. This is one of the most fascinating literature whereby this Silma have narrated how to measure the success of the information system. And according to Lambe, 2012, union drive is that firms come together to measure resources together to achieve a mutual business goal that one firm cannot achieve without the involvement of the other. Resources in these circumstances are defined as any noticeable or intangible object offered for use by a business to participate in its marketplace. In methodology used in this research, this study has utilized a quantitative discrete design to measure the effectiveness of outsourced information system. The target population include 10 significant IT managers from the ministry as a case study, 6 senior non-IT manager in the ministry, and 9 ordinary Ministry of Labor employees. These have contributed to the researcher interest in evaluating the effectiveness of our outsourcing system within the Ministry of Labor. This study utilized this research designed to get hold of first-hand data presented by the participant or responded to formulate Son's conclusion and recommendation for the study. Because the target group of the participant, the target population, these are the people that deal day-to-day in procurement to users within that utilize information system, outsource information system within the ministry. Data were collected using the questionnaire as a research instrument. The total of 25 questionnaires distributed, only 22 were returned, resulting in a response rate of 88%. Then we have the presentation and discussion of result. This one was one of the questionnaires that was drafted, challenge of outsourcing information system within the ministry. Number 1 question was failure to manage outsourcing relationship properly. That's prompted highest 23%. That believe that disagreed that it's no failure to manage the relation properly. And on lack of loyalty and dedication on the part of vendor companies, 25 gave a response that they disagreeing with the context. And loss of technical knowledge, 20 or the highest of 21 and 21, both on strong, not agreeing and also on strongly agree, responded that there's a loss of technical knowledge within these two parties, or mostly from the basis of the ministry when the handover is done of the information system. And 29% agree that there's over dependence on a supplier for the ministry to depend more on vendors, and others as per narrated response from on the chart. And also provider inability to adapt to the need technology was another question, yes. And 25 believe it was strongly disagreeing on the context. And reduced customer service, to say there's no reduced customer service from the part of the vendor, and that was highly disagreed by several 25% of the participants. Another question that was prompted is factor to be taken into consideration when outsourcing. The highest is that you should monitor contract and enforce control mechanism from the source, from the ministry or from the host company. They must critically monitor contractors. In the following person, 19, use of internal staff rather than external consultants. Intends probably to get away with outsourcing of human system where capacity, rather rely on capacity and make sure capacity can able to hold. So they are advocating, I believe they are advocating more for termination of outsourcing of the main systems. And also post-implementations and good communication between client and vendor, as the response, that's how the response was. Internal preparation, analyze and prioritize outsourcing critically, as per the response on the chat. Sorry about that. And on conclusion and future work, the recommendation is that the host must always be involved. They must choose the right contractor by making first background check and they must have a good reference. Evaluate the existing infrastructure, ensure transparency and trustworthiness between the vendor and them. Recommendation for further research is that, as I said, the case study was mainly on Ministry of Labor. Further research may be carried out on effectiveness of our general system in other OMAS, office ministry agency, or the department itself that regulates and oversee the outsourcing model of information system within the government. Since they are the one that indirectly measure information system within the OMAS, the goal of future attempts should be analyzed concept through surveys or other experiments to help the next research or concept evolve toward more quantitative rough authentication, with the aim of improving the outsourcing model in the office government or public service. And the references, these are one of the references that I've used to get more insight on several research on the same topic that was previously focused on the matter. That was it for my presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And again, I apologize again for the inconvenience that I've caused. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, Petrus. You've laid out some key challenges associated with outsourcing information systems, and I'm sure these are not limited to Namibia. But leaving aside systems delivered that are not fit for purpose, what do you perceive as being the key barriers to success? Was it that some of the systems were designed to require external maintenance as part of a business model by suppliers? Is it a lack of involvement in the co-design of solutions to make sure that it was actually usable at the end of the day? Or is it a staff capacity gap at a ministry level? What do you perceive as some of the key challenges?
Okay, so I think it to be is the statement that you mentioned last, the capability of a staff manager within the OMAS or within the government itself, and also another, the drafting of a service level agreement in coordination solely. The ministry, one of the responses of the ministry were more depending on the vendors in drafting this type of references, and the user preference were not made. So that have highly contributed to the failure, most of the failure, as per the response and the research that I've conducted on the topic.
That makes a lot of sense based on my experience. So is there anybody on the call who would like to share experiences from their own country's perspective in terms of how they managed some of these risks, either in terms of capacity gaps or over-relying on suppliers to draft service level agreements and not thinking through what they actually needed? Jay, do you have any thoughts based on your experience?
Yes. So also, I think this, first of all, from the problem, that's a common problem also, because most of the services that we are using, most of them are outsourced. And most of the time is, as you rightly said, is the service level agreement. That is where the problem lies. Because at times, those who draft the agreement are not the same monitoring the implementation of the project. That's the key problem. I think to resolve this, it should be those who design the service level, the service level agreement should be those to monitor, to be sure that exactly this is what we recommended, this is what we assign the vendor to deliver, and we're 100% sure. But again, most of the cases is that someone designed the agreement, but someone else follow up, and they become, at times the agreement was poorly done. They're just you have to follow what was in the agreement. I think that's a risk. To mitigate the risk is that we need to do designing to follow the implementation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Chipo, do you want to read out your question?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I was just wondering whether the Ministry of Labour, where this research was conducted, or government in general, has any framework or guidelines in place which they use when they're outsourcing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Mainly, as I said, there's a department within the government itself that regulate and oversee all the outsourcing information acquisitions, is the Department for DPC item, as I've mentioned earlier. So every agency, or under, let me say, the ministry under the department, they rely as per the guidelines of the DPC item regulations. So as I stated, this can be further research to say, I also put up a recommendation to say that can be a further research on that DPC item department. And so to say the agency or the ministry said they don't have power to, unless if they are initiating an outsourcing, they still have to go submit through this department of DPC ITM under the head of the ministry, which is Office of the Prime Minister, and then only then the vendor or the process have to be done through the DPC ITM into the agency, into the ministry.
Thanks, Petrus.
That's fine.
Yeah, I also want to kind of ask a general question. If there is anybody on the call who is aware of national or even institutional framework or guidelines that your ministry may have that you would like to make made widely available, or if you're interested in being part of a study to look at trying to identify such resources, please reach out to me, and Miriam and I would be very interested in working with you to try to operationalize that. So are there any further questions or comments?
Yeah, I put up my hand, Paul, so I would
go ahead.
It's Silma speaking from South Africa. I do think that we might have a few examples. I can look around, but I will gladly also participate if you want to have a group, or if you want to maybe further this whole thing about the service level agreements. In South Africa, we experience that generally contract management skills reside in the legal department or in the engineering department in public sector administrations, and not necessarily in the IT department. And therefore, if they don't work very closely together, we end up with service level agreements and contracts and agreements that are not well managed or not well overseen or even impractical to implement. Due to a lack of skills, you also find that once there is a service level agreement in place, it just continues on and on and on and on without effectively being reviewed. And very often the public institution has to be reminded that it cannot be a never-ending contract. They have to actually at some other stage terminate the contract and go out on a public procurement participation, so that they can at least test the market and reappoint the service provider or get another service provider. And then in my presentation, I indicated that particularly at municipal level, not necessarily at provincial and national level, there are financial constraints. So we find that when a municipality cannot pay the service provider their monthly or their quarterly dues, they either, we say they hold their data at ransom. They can't access their data at the service that's hosted by the service provider, or the service provider just terminates access to the software or the service that's been used. And then it further paralyzes public sector as opposed to try and help them to improve effectiveness. And I'm not sure if the authors can maybe share, have they come across similar situations and how do they deal with it? But yes, I will look around for some, example contracts or example service agreements, gladly share with you, and I will gladly participate if there's further research. Thank you.
Yeah, I think fruitful potential partnership opportunity across IST-Africa partner countries with research institutions in those countries. So if there's anyone either who's on the meeting today or that you talk to over the coming days that would be interested in sharing insights, we'd be very interested in working with you on that. Petrus, do you have any final comments before I move on to Maria?
On that one, I'm just advocating for, I think, with the understanding of if level, I think the main thing to perfect all this in all public service, or let me say in all general in African countries, is just to draft a proper, to have an understanding of how to draft a proper service level agreement that will actually prompt any slack of not doing the job right from the side of the vendors, and also probably increase the capacity within our agency, or let me say the government and public service, for us to get out with outsourcing, because most of the time the vendor, they don't really meet up to the standard of and also the main part also, I think, consideration of user preference, because not in the statement one have stated say it's not the vendor system, but it's rather the user system. So if we take that approach, it will have a bigger impact on improving the service within the public service. I think that was it from our side. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just my final thought, I do believe that relying on vendors to provide service level agreements without internal review and a strategic eye in terms of what's in the best interest of the organization is insane. And I also agree very much with Silma that there should be forced regular reviews of service level agreements and service contracts to ensure that they're still fit for purpose, that they're correctly priced, because you could find that it could be available much cheaper somewhere else. And also there needs to be some equality that protects the vendor to make sure they get compensated, but also protects the public interest in terms of avoiding a situation where the government essentially doesn't have access to public information. Thank you all very much for that. That was a very useful discussion. So I'm now going to pass on to our next presenter, which is Maria, who's going to be talking about the use of electronic notification systems for registering births and deaths. Yeah,
sorry, sir, before you go on, I just wanted to say I'm also open for any further consultation regarding any research on this. So I'm always available in case anyone is interested.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Jude Osakwe. The title of this presentation is the use of electronic notification systems, the e-notification system for registering birth and death findings from a developing country. My co-authors are Ms. Maria Shilamba, Dr. Gloria Iyawa, and Dr. Martin Ojakwa. Ms. Maria Shilamba, myself, and Dr. Gloria Iyawa, we are from Namibia University of Science and Technology, while Dr. Martin Ojakwa is from Ghana Communication Technology University, Accra. Health organizations are increasingly investing in information and communication technology for benefits related to work process optimization. One of these is the timely registration of birth and death through an electronic system called the e-notification system. The purpose of this study is therefore to assess the extent at which the e-notification system is being used to develop in developing countries, using Katima Mulilo State Hospital, Namibia, as a case study. The study also ascertained the benefits and drawbacks the hospital is currently experiencing with the introduction of the new system. Statistics have revealed that the birth of close to 230 million children under 5 years of age and 2/3 of all deaths have not been officially registered. The registration of children serves as a basis for the establishment of their legal identity, equal access to basic services, and other basic needs. On the other hand, registration of death, which include identifying the cause of death, provides the public health system with the necessary statistics that can be used to develop and implement programs which will help improve the health and well-being of the general populace. Therefore, for the general welfare of a population, the statistics of birth and death must be collected and stored. This will enable agencies and governments to track the progress made to plan towards better sustainable goals, thereby enhancing better universal health coverage. The collection and storage of birth and death statistics can be done through the use of technology, and Namibia has made significant progress in this regard. After independence, the Namibian government exploited new opportunities and possibilities created by information and communication technology. One of the sectors the government concentrated on was the health sector. They embarked upon developing national policies and strategies for integrating ICT into the health system. To make this project feasible, the Ministry of Health and Social Services, supported by different non-governmental organizations, assisted in the ministry in so many aspects, in which registration of birth and death are among them. To facilitate registration of birth and death, the government of Namibia, together with UNICEF, launched an electronic system called the e-notification system. For a little explanation, electronic system is a physical interconnection of components or parts which gathers various amounts of information together, and this depicts the e-notification system. This innovative model of birth and death notification aims to make birth registration more accessible to all Namibians and support the country in reaching at least 40% of the children who are not registered within a year of being born, placing Namibia among the leaders in improved civil registration and vital statistics in the continent. The benefit of e-birth and e-death notification is very important because both registration are essential for national planning. Coupled with population census, they are central to estimating the size of a population, particularly in small countries. Major benefits of e-death and e-notification system include also efficient and timely processing of birth and death record, easy and quick update to a birth and death certificate, provision of accurate data, easy correction of errors, prompt exchange and integration of data with government parastatals, and prevention of fraud due to enhanced security. So in continuation of full implementation of the e-notification system, Katima Mulilo State Hospital, situated in the Zambezi region of Namibia, recently launched the e-notification system. However, despite the huge investment in the health sector, evidence shows that a lot still needs to be done. For instance, in the case of e-notification in Namibia, the pace of implementation is still very slow, even when the results of such an investment should be visible. The slow-paced assistance might thus possibly contribute to the lack of optimized healthcare services. This could be because the Ministry of Health and Social Services has not really conducted an assessment on the use of e-notification. And this makes it difficult to justify if such an investment is beneficial to the healthcare sector. The objective of this study is to assess the extent at which Katima Mulilo State Hospital has implemented the e-notification system, and also to examine the benefits and drawbacks that the hospital is experiencing as a result of the introduction of the e-notification system. The study also assessed the extent to which Katima Mulilo Hospital is using the e-notification system. It also examined the ICT infrastructure available for the use of e-notification at Katima Mulilo State Hospital, and then recommended suitable strategies and practices that can be employed to enhance the use of e-notification system at the Katima Mulilo State Hospital. The study population is made up of all end users of the e-notification system in the state hospital in Zambezi region of Namibia. The study identified categories of respondents as nurses and doctors that participated in the study. Katima Mulilo Hospital also has 3 health centers located in various areas in the region. And these centers have also facilities for e-notification. So the sample was collected from these facilities. Data was collected from staff members of the hospital through survey questionnaires comprising of both open and closed-ended questions. The sample was identified through judgmental sampling. And judgmental sampling is a non-probability sampling technique where the researcher's judgment is based on who will provide the best information for the study. 8 doctors, 15 nurses, and 2 IT administrators were selected. This gives a total of 55 participants. The data collected was analyzed using statistical package for social sciences, and the presentation methods for these findings and results are tables and graphs. So from the results, we can see the various questions that were asked. The participants were asked different kind of questions, and the results are what we are seeing on the screen now. Like some of the questions are like this: I am well trained in the use of e-notification system. We need consistent training to meet up with the constant change in trends of technology. So here you can see the various responses. Some got 100%, like in the area of training, and then proper statistics also got 100%. Some of them, about 74%, also noted that they use e-notification system frequently. We also have another one where it stated that Katima Mulilo Hospital has enough ICT infrastructure to make e-notification system a success. In this particular one, 58% noted that they do not have enough infrastructure, while 42% also noted that they have enough infrastructure. Moving forward, we also have results from the open-ended questions. Questions like benefits of using e-notification systems, e-notification changing the way the work is done, challenges of e-notification, and then recommendations. So these are the questions that were asked the respondents, which they also responded, as you can see from the responses on the screen. The study has been able to establish that there is a functional e-notification system in Namibia hospitals. And the respondents noted that the system is easy to use, It was also revealed that the operating staff handling the systems are trained in that area, and there is also availability of technicians who handles the maintenance of the system whenever maintenance is required. That notwithstanding, there is also the need for adequate funding to finance normal operating expenses, maintenance costs, and frequent upgrades that seem to be an intrinsic feature of ICT systems. Based on data analyzed, e-notification systems have been seen to have lots of benefits. For instance, the use of the system makes it easy to access information. It gives accurate and reliable information. Statistics are easily available for prompt decision making. Birth and death certificates are also readily available, and information is easily controlled. And finally, there's less paperwork to be done. But despite these benefits attached to e-notification system, there are still some challenges as revealed by the respondents. They noted that the computers available are not enough, and the network is usually very slow. The respondents also stated that sometimes the process seemed difficult because they still have to note down all the work on paper, which makes it time consuming when capturing data and also searching for the cause of death. There is also the problem of parents and relatives not carrying out the identification of their loved ones, particularly in the case of death. So if they don't bring, they don't notify the hospital, and they find it also very difficult to identify these loved ones, or they don't come to identify their loved ones when deaths come calling. Finally, the staff assigned to carry out these services are not enough, which means more staff is needed for this particular new innovation to be very successful. To take care of these challenges, some recommendations were put forward. Medical personnel in developing countries are poorly equipped with limited access to medical data and facilities. Enough computers should be provided for staff in charge of these processes. This will make them perform better. There's also the need to have a functional high-speed network to enhance efficient productivity. Family members should also present accurate identities of their loved ones, particularly in the case of death, for easy traceability. In as much as the respondents indicated that they are well trained for the job, they also revealed that there is need to hire more staff to reduce the burden on the staff on ground. Long-term outcomes typically depend on factors such as reliability of sophisticated equipment and availability of technical staff to operate and maintain such equipment. It is also suggested that there should be periodic staff development programs to keep them abreast with any new development in the area of e-notification. This will go a long way to enhancing a better performance in the hospitals. The study was conducted only at Katima Mulilo State Hospital, Namibia. This means that only the staff of the hospital participated in this research. Therefore, it may not be generalized. However, the research has put forth an overview of how e-notification system is being used, its benefits, and its challenges. Further research should cover other hospitals and ascertain the perceptions of the general public on the effectiveness of the system. And this research should also cover not just only other hospitals within Namibia. Research can also be carried out in hospitals in other developing countries, so that we'll be able to see how e-notification system is also being carried out in these other places. Thank you for listening, and we welcome questions from the audience.
Thanks, Jude. Can you clarify, first of all, what lessons have been learned to date? And has this platform been rolled out at national level, or is it still at a pilot stage in this specific hotel, at this specific hospital?
Yes, thank you very much. It has been rolled out, so it is being used in the country as we speak.
Okay, and then can you clarify, you talked about that while there are challenges with the electronic side of things, that some paper records are still required. So can you clarify what you mean by that? Is that at the recording stage, or is the system not designed to generate a paper record if required?
Yeah, the system is designed to generate records, but as it is now, this is one of the problems we saw when we were carrying out this research, because the staff of the hospital are told to also record manually before transferring into the system. So we expect that since the system is operational, they can just transfer directly, or record directly to the system and then print out. But now they are made to also do it manually and then electronically. So it makes it more tedious.
And is that because people are concerned that the application may not work or the network may not be available?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's still fear. There's still fear that.
No, I understand. Yeah. And then a related question to that is: so you've identified that health clinics associated with the hospital also have access to that e-notification system. So is that true across Namibia, or is that just in the case of this one regional hospital?
Yeah, the e-notification system is not only in that hospital. We have it in the central hospital, also in Binduk, but we concentrated on only that particular hospital.
No, I understand. But my question was, you referred to that for that particular hospital, it had, I think it was 3 health clinics that are associated with it,
Okay.
and they also had access to the platform. So what I'm trying to understand is the e-notification system available at regional local clinics, or is it only currently available at hospital level?
Yes, it's not really, it's not widespread at the moment. It is available in the main hospitals within the country.
Okay, so then that answers my next question, which was, how are home births recorded? So you still have the same problem. If you have a birth in a hospital, or if you're in Windhoek and you have access to the hospital, that's fine. But if you're somewhere else, it may not be as easy.
Yes, but as we speak now, it is being spread to other parts of the country. Like some district hospitals already have these notification systems. If we take countries like Kenya gives like 6 months within that this e-notifications, that is registration of birth, should be done within 6 months. And this 6 months leverage is for those that are not maybe close to the systems to have enough time to register it. But in Namibia, this e-notification system is now operational in most of these little clinics, though the main clinics are those anchoring the system.
Thank you. And then my final question, unless there's any other questions from the floor, you noticed that identification was sometimes not available for death notification, where relatives didn't have identification for the person who's died. So how does that work in a context where it may be challenging to register the birth in the first case, and therefore no identification documents may exist?
Please, can you come again?
Of course. So you mentioned that one of the challenges that you faced was that some relatives didn't have identification for their loved one who'd passed away. And I'm trying to square the circle of, if somebody whose birth wasn't registered, they wouldn't have identification anyway. So is this not just a signal of the same problem?
Yes, I agree with you, and that is why this system is very, very important, because it helps a lot when it comes to taking national data in the country. Most times, if they don't have registration, what they usually do is to get a declaration from the police stating their identity before they now go into registration of death. That is those that may not have that birth registration. So the system is also linked with the Ministry of Home Affairs in the country. So whatever registration is done automatically is also recorded at the Ministry of Home Affairs. So without you having that registration, there is no way you can even think of having the national ID identity for the in the country. So it has been made in a way that everybody must have to register for you to enjoy some social services in the country.
Thanks very much, Jude. So does anybody else have any other questions or comments for Jude? In which case, thank you very much, Jude. That was a very interesting presentation. So we're now going to break for lunch, and we're going to start again in just over an hour at 45 after the next hour, okay? So that session is going to focus on collaborative open innovation. And I think we've got a very interesting set of presentations that I know I'm looking forward to hearing, and I hope you will too. So we look forward to seeing you back here in an hour. Thank you very much. Gurmila Mahakath, Slán go fóill.